Hi everyone, this is Frank with Teaching University. In this lecture today, we're going to be discussing James Allen's book, As a Man Thinketh, and how we can harness the power of our imagination to help improve ourselves and our circumstances to better horizons and help us move towards a more ideal vision of a better future. And before we begin the lecture, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can watch all my lectures on personal growth, wealth development, creativity, and entrepreneurship. So, James Allen here says that a man's mind may be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. But whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. If no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seeds will fall therein. It will continue to produce their kind. So we want to equate our mind to a garden. And what we cultivate in our mind on a consistent basis, or what we think about on a consistent basis, can sum up our personality and personal reality. And many of us struggle with battling self-limiting beliefs about ourselves and the world around us. And many of us, and I'm guilty of this as well, have struggled with perceptions of ourselves and the world that may not necessarily be accurate and that go against our self-interest. So then to harness the power of our imagination, then, it requires that we equate our brain to our mind to a garden. And what you impress upon the subconscious mind can determine how you can change your circumstances and also change yourself. So by focusing on what we don't want, and by focusing on negative ideas and useless information, and let's face it, we are bombarded with so much negativity, useless information on a daily basis, especially in social media, that over time, this is impressed in the subconscious. And over time, it shapes our personality without us even realizing it. So when utilizing our mental studio, we want to begin thinking about what kind of ideal life we want. What does the ideal day look like? What is the ideal career? What is it that we would like to do? What are we passionate about? What is it that we love to do? And we want to begin focusing on those things and focusing on what we love. And by putting in the good stuff or exposing ourselves to more positive content and information, and by controlling the way we communicate with ourselves and the words that we use to communicate with ourselves and others, we can begin cultivating this garden where we're putting in seeds that can grow into something very abundant down the road. So Allen later adds, a man is literally what he thinks about, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts. A person is limited only by the thoughts that he chooses. So as I said before, this kind of sums up what I said from the previous lecture or slide, that a man is literally what he thinks about all day long. It is the complete sum of all his thoughts. So if you consistently think about how you're not good enough to start a business, or maybe you feel like you're not attractive enough, or that perhaps maybe you aren't intelligent enough, or don't have enough money, or don't have the resources, or know the right people to do the things that you want to do, if you constantly think about those things, that can produce undesirable results in your life. But the good thing is that through the power of imagination, a person is limited only by the thoughts that he chooses or she chooses, meaning that our imagination is unlimited. We can think about an infinite number of possibilities and new experiences and opportunities, new ideas, new businesses that we can start, or inventions we can create, or new passions we can pursue, or new choices or decisions we can make. That there's just not one way to do something. Perhaps maybe you're starting a business and you can begin expanding the way you think about how to market that business. There's not just one right way to do something. And by realizing this opens up a whole new amount of choices that we can exercise to help us get where we want to be. And it starts with removing these limitations that we put on ourselves about what we can think about and what we can choose to focus on. And we have the ability to choose what we think about. And this may be hard to understand at first, or hard to believe for that matter, because let's face it, most of us spend the day reacting to our circumstances or worshiping at the altar of our circumstances. But rather than, we can be much more deliberate in where we want to go. And it starts with the thoughts that we choose to indulge in. And this is through the power of self-awareness. So then James Allen says, cherish your visions, cherish your ideals. Cherish the music that stirs in your heart, the beauty that forms in your mind, the loveliness that drapes your purest thoughts. For out of them will grow all delightful conditions, all heavenly environment. Of these, if you but remain true to them, your world will at last be built. And I think this is very profound at the end of this quote. Your world will at last be built. So to build the ideal life, it is to begin cherishing the ideal vision of a better future, right? Cherishing and focusing on our ideals, the things that we love and are passionate about. And oftentimes what happens to many of us as we get older and we enter adulthood, we abandon many of our dreams and aspirations because we're told to grow up, or we're told we have to be realistic and basically be like everybody else. So I would argue then that it is important that we revisit our dreams and desires and things that we've wanted to do. Maybe revisit a passion that we've had, or a dream to start a business or to write a book or write a play. Maybe you wanted to be a musician or play an instrument, or you wanted to be a professional athlete, or maybe you want to go back to school and get another degree. You want to revisit these passions and these dreams, because it is these dreams that will help us build a better world for ourselves and for others, to create a heavenly environment where we can create heaven on earth, where we can either make heaven out of hell or hell out of heaven. And that all starts with perception, the way we perceive our reality. And that perhaps our perceptions of reality aren't necessarily accurate. And by asking yourself more empowering questions, what would it feel like if I was abundant? What would it feel like if I accomplished my dream? You can bring your dreams and your visions into the present moment now and begin cultivating our mind by injecting the feeling as if what we want is already here now, where we're no longer waiting for something outside of us to change us. And that is extremely empowering, because then for the first time you can begin controlling your life by focusing on what you think about and how you feel. And your feelings can direct your actions, what can help you produce more positive results. So then, good thoughts and actions, and this is a great introduction to what I just previously said regarding thoughts and actions. Good thoughts and actions can never produce bad results. Bad thoughts and actions can never produce good results. We understand this law in the natural world and work with it, but few understand it in the mental and moral world. Although its operation there is just as simple and undeviating, and they therefore do not cooperate with it. So to really simplify this whole process is to then think about cause and effect, where if you cultivate more positive thoughts, it doesn't mean that you're going to think positively all the time, of course. It doesn't mean that you're going to be happy all the time or feel good all the time. We all have our days. But when you stay focused and persistent with cultivating positive thoughts and actions, then over time it will produce positive results. But when we indulge in negative thoughts and behaviors on a consistent basis, always worrying about the worst case scenario that can happen in the future, or living based on the failures and disappointments of the past, by always living in fight or flight, always worrying, always living in anxiety, because we don't know what the unknown brings, then over time this can produce bad results. And we indulge in these negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, frustration, and anger, and so forth. It produces bad results. And when Allen says, understanding this law in the natural world, there's a natural order of things. When you look at our universe and our natural world and our environment, things are very orderly, from how plants grow and flourish to how animals in the wild seem to survive and grow and cultivate. As simplistic as that sounds, there is a natural order of things. And there's also a natural world and order when it comes to our thoughts and our mental processes and how we think. So then, if we're not getting the desired results that we want, then perhaps it's because our thought processes or mental model is not producing the desired results that we want. So then it requires then that we think in new ways. You cannot expect to change your personal reality with the same personality, as Joe Dispenza says very often. It requires then producing new thoughts and actions that can give us better results. And that requires a tremendous amount of self-awareness, not to go on autopilot, where we're just simply reacting to whatever happens to us. We begin to then be much more deliberate in moving where we want to go and making new choices and decisions. So then there could be no progress nor achievement without sacrifice. And a man's worldly success will be by the measure that he sacrifices his confused animal thoughts and fixes his mind on the development of his plans and the strengthening of his resolution and self-reliance. So what strikes me here is, will be by the measure that he sacrifices his confused animal thoughts. I mentioned before about how many of us, and myself included, have struggled with dealing with these animal thoughts, which is just another word for negative emotions such as anger, fear, anxiety, worry, rage, and so forth. Or the shadow, as Carl Jung has alluded to in his work. We all have this shadow, this dark side. And when we allow the shadow to control us in these self-limiting beliefs, then there can be no progress in our life. So the sacrifice then that we are making is sacrificing these negative behaviors, these negative thought processes, and replacing them with more positive, more conducive thoughts and mental processes that can help us progress and achieve and get better results. As I said before, to reiterate, it is self-awareness, or what can be used in psychological terms is metacognition, where we think about how we're thinking and ask ourselves questions. Well, is this negative thought producing the desired results that I want? And how can I change that? And that's why it's so important to journal, to meditate, something that I preach very often that's very important to do. To take the time when we disconnect from our present environment and begin to go do the hard work within to change the way we think. And putting it at bay, not to say that we can never ignore them. We shouldn't ignore these animal thoughts or negative emotions, but rather we should use them as a way to grow and transform and to overcome. We have to face what is ailing us if we are to change and achieve and progress in our lives. So then the thoughtless, the ignorant, as James Allen says, and the indolent, seeing only the apparent effects of things and not the things themselves, talk of law, fortune, and chance. Seeing a man grow rich, they say, how lucky is he? Observing another become intellectual, they exclaim, how highly favored he is. And noting the saintly character and wide influence of another, they remark, how chance aids him at every turn. They don't see the trials and failures and the struggles which these men have voluntarily encountered in order to gain their experience, have no knowledge of the sacrifices they have made, of the undaunted efforts they have put forth, of the faith they have exercised. So when we look at the most successful people in any field, whether in business and entrepreneurship, in the arts, in politics, in the sciences, in sports, we only look at their successes, but we ignore or fail to see all the struggles they've experienced, the failures, the disappointment, the dark night of the soul, those moments that we all where we feel like we're at our lowest, we're in a moment of crisis, and how they've had to overcome these struggles and sacrifice the self-limiting beliefs and negative emotions they've indulged in for so long to become something more. And this takes work. And that is where the hard work is cultivating this mental garden, where we really do the work and focusing on what it is that we want, and cultivating these feelings of euphoria, of love, of passion on a more consistent basis. Because being human then is having to battle these animal thoughts, these negative emotions that that are a part of us, whether we like it or not. So in these struggles then, in these failures that we've all experienced, and we can use them as the jet fuel to overcome and catapult ourselves to Abraham Maslow's pinnacle of human experience in his hierarchy of needs, where we authentically express ourselves. We remove the layers, the limitations that have held us back. And we finally no longer allow these self-limiting beliefs to chain us. And we enter this state of flow where we become who we really are and begin to act out on our instincts and our ideas without overthinking. And Alan Watson, much of his work, stresses this, that we think too much. And it's time to stop thinking so much and start doing. And when we begin to act more on our intuition and what we truly desire, and to listen to ourselves from time to time, we can enter these states of flow where we're in the present moment and we're in the zone where everything just starts to be clicking and things just start to happen without us trying to force it. So they who have no central purpose in their life fall an easy prey to petty worries, fears, troubles, and self-pitying, all of which are indications of weakness, which lead just as surely as deliberately planned sins, though by a different route, to failure. Unhappiness and loss for weakness cannot persist in a power-evolving universe. So then, to enter these states of flow, where we're in the present moment, where we begin to cultivate these new positive thoughts and aspirations and visions, then it requires then that we have a purpose, a meaning for our lives. So many of us chase happiness, and there's nothing wrong with happiness. But happiness is a side effect of having a central purpose for our lives. And that is a decision that is very subjective that we all have to make for ourselves. What is our meaning? What is our purpose in life? And it doesn't have to be so specific. Our purpose could be simply to be our authentic selves. Our purpose could be to be great entrepreneurs, to be in the service of others. Our purpose in life could be creative, to create and act out on our ideas. That is our purpose in life, to overcome. Those are just some examples that could serve as our central purpose in life. And that is entirely up to you. But by finding meaning, pursuing something that is worthwhile, a worthwhile goal, happiness, success, achievement, love, peace of mind, those are all side effects when we surrender and pursue a worthwhile goal that can empower ourselves and help others in the process, because we are now in the service of others. And that should be the underlying theme of what our purpose in life should be, is that when we are our authentic selves, we are not only doing ourselves a favor, we are also doing a favor to others, because when we are our authentic selves, then people will gravitate towards us because they see the power that we possess and how we can have a positive impact on their lives. And that tells you the power of our thoughts and our imagination, and how what we choose to focus on can determine our personal reality. So then finally, the circumstances then which a man encounters with suffering are the result of his own mental inharmony. More often than not, many of the circumstances that we experience are self-induced or self-created. Doesn't mean we can control anything. I'm not saying that all of the things that have happened in our lives are bad things that have happened are our fault. There are things that are outside of our control, of course. But more often than not, many of the events or negative events that occur in our lives are because of our own doing. And it seems like suffering is something that many of us are addicted to. It's almost self-induced in a way because we don't know any better. And again, this is a result of the constant negativity we are bombarded with that makes us feel powerless and like victims. But I think after reading James Allen's work, and also works like Think, Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and others, we begin to see that we are not the victims of our circumstances. We are the creator of our circumstances. And to change them then requires that we stop acting like victims and realize they are much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And by embracing this power, by harnessing the power of our imagination, and by shifting our focus to a vision of a better future, we can then begin to see achievement and success very naturally without much effort. Where by living in the present moment, we're bringing our dreams into the present moment now by feeling as if the wish is already fulfilled. And by doing so, then, no longer are we enslaved by our circumstances. We actually begin to become the masters of our circumstances and the master of our destiny. So thank you so much for watching this lecture. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can watch all my lectures on personal growth and wealth building and creativity. Thank you so much for watching again, and I'll see you next time.